Hello guys, and welcome to my Facebook Live. It is New Year's Day 2021. Did we ever think we would make it this far? It really has been a challenging year, hasn't it? And also, I think some of those challenges are going to continue into 2021. And with regards to travel, that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So, first of all, if you haven't met me before, then my name is Gilly Batchelor. I'm a personal travel consultant. If you don't know what that is, it's essentially I'm a travel agent. I have an ABTA license and I book atoll protected holidays. They could be a package holiday as you'd understand them with Jet2, but it could also be a completely bespoke itinerary to you. I just operate a little bit differently. I don't have a high street premises. I operate from an office that's based at my home, and I have clients there by appointment. So whilst I can offer all those products and services every other travel agent does as well, it's a level of service and it's, you know, like a personal one. So I take the time to talk you through what you're booking and the associated risks and rewards with that at the moment. Okay, I'm part of the wider Hayes group, and some of you may have seen that Irene Hayes in the honours list became a dame. My God, it's just beyond wonderful. She's an amazing lady, and it's really great to be part of that wider Hayes family, which are incredibly well respected. Some of you may be aware that John Hayes died back in November, which was very, very devastating and during a particularly difficult year. So that's a real bittersweet accolade for Irene, but, you know, huge congratulations and very much deserved. So that's a little bit about me. I'm Gilly Batchelor. I'm essentially a travel agent, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to feature a little bit about destinations, but what this is more about is if you choose to travel and things that you need to be aware of. I've been doing these Facebook Lives really since about March. I used to do them regularly on a Friday at 6. I stopped for a while, but now we're back in Tier 4. I'm based in Staffordshire. I'm going to start them again because lots of issues are surfacing. But a lot of people contact me about things in the last few days, and this is quite a good way to do, you know, like a global update for everyone. So the first thing, Brexit. Love it or hate it, it's happened now. That transition period has now been completed, and as of today, we are no longer members of Europe. Now that does have some changes, let's say, rather than challenges for travel. So if you've got a passport, if you are travelling to another European country, that passport must be less than 10 years old, okay? And also it must have a minimum of 6 months on it. So if you're travelling to somewhere and you're away for 2 weeks, it would have to have sort of those 6 months and 2 weeks. So it's validity when you come back. Please, please, please don't chance your arm on this. I've had people do it before for countries, before we came out of the EU, for other destinations that require 6 months. It is pretty strictly enforced. You'll get turned away from the flight and there'll be no recompense on travel insurance or through your tour operator. So get it sorted out well in advance. You can still apply for passports, though, again, you need to prepare. But though, to be fair, none of us are really going anywhere at the moment unless it's for business, though there are still some people travelling, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. If you see me looking off to the right, it's because I've got lots of notes, because we've got a lot to get through. So what we've talked about is passports and the validity of those. I'm just going to turn my sheet over. I'm sort of testing myself here because I had it the wrong way around. That's not very helpful, is it? That's not a very good start. Okay, so will you need a visa? Now, this is a huge question. And the simple answer is I don't believe that you will. But it's not actually guaranteed at this stage. So let's just backtrack a bit. What is a visa? Now, it is a document that you would apply for. You've already got a passport that's valid. You would apply for a document to give you authorization to travel to a destination. Okay, like for example, say China. Okay, they would do background checks and such like, and then they would agree or they would deny that visa. And it's typically for a period of time, and it can be for a single date of travel. Okay. However, there's lots and lots of other countries which have visa waiver schemes. And where you may have come across this is if you've ever travelled to America or Canada. So the American one is called an ESTA. And that essentially is a visa waiver that you apply for online, and you give details. You could apply, well in advance of travelling. And you apply online, you put in your passport details, they ask you lots of questions, and then you'll either get an automatic granting of it, or they'll do some more research, or you'll get denied. It's unusual to get denied because you would normally, there will be certain things that trigger it if you're on a watch list, or potentially if you've got an unspent criminal record. So if you've got any issues with that, it's really important that you apply as far in advance as you can, ideally at least 6 months. So if anything gets flagged, then we've got chance, to appeal and resolve that. So anyway, no visa, but it looks like from 2022 we'll be part of this visa waiver scheme, and there's a new name that's coming for it across the whole of of what the EU is and additional countries. It looks like that we will be part of, and there will be a fee for that. They're saying around £7, but again, that's yet to be confirmed. Now, we're in my opinion, a bit of no man's land here, because I don't think this is 100% clear what you do and don't need. So what you really need to do if you're travelling to any destination in Europe is go to our government's website and check each individual country, that you're travelling to. And if you're not sure, then to contact their consulate directly in that country. I think there'll be more information coming, but it's not here yet. Okay, so we talked about your passport. Now, you may, if you travel in Europe, there's this fast track when you come into the country. There's this fast track lane for EU passport holders. We can no longer use that. I mean, that's not a huge thing. But I tell you, there are two other things that you do need to consider, okay? One is you might be asked to show your your return ticket. Again, so if you are going out on, for example, people would book a single ticket and then perhaps they're going to be away for a couple of months and they're going to buy their return. That's not really an option. You have to show when you're looking to return, and you also have to show that you have the means to maintain yourself. Now, again, that will vary between countries, but they're two things that we would never have had to have done previously when travelling to Europe as well. Also, there is now a limit to the amount of time that you can actually spend. And I think it's around 90 days within 180. Okay, now, probably most of us would love to be spending 90 days in Europe, I'm sure, but most wouldn't be. But where it can become a challenge is if you perhaps own a second home in Europe, then, you will find that you could be breaching that, and that's really something to consider. Okay, health insurance. Again, if you've been travelling in Europe, we have an EHIC, which is the European Health Insurance Card. Now that was valid. If you, they are valid for 5 years, okay, and if you've got one currently, they remain valid until it's expired. So if you applied in 2020, you could have a lot more cover, though I'm slightly nervous about that. I've read that that's the case, but I would want to make sure I had belt and braces, because I can imagine going to a hospital in Europe with my card and they're saying, well, you're no longer part of Europe. So that for me does need some more clarification. So personally, I don't think we should be relying on these EHIC cards. So that means that if you were travelling in Europe previously, you were entitled to critical health care, that, and also maternity care as well as part of that. And you could access local health services free of charge. You can no longer do that unless your EHIC is still valid, and there are certain circumstances where it will be. So it is essential, if you are travelling to Europe anytime soon, that you have valid travel insurance. Now, I make a lot of these videos, and when I say travel insurance, that might be for in-country health facilities. Also, there could be elements of repatriation. You also need to look at things like COVID cover as well. So there's lots of elements to that. But what we're specifically talking about here is if you get sick when you're away in Europe, you need additional cover, in my opinion. Now, we are told by the government they are going to be, and I'm looking at my sheet here because there's lots of new things, they are introducing a global health insurance card. And what they're saying is that will provide you with the same support if you were travelling in Europe going forward. There is scant information on this, and I even tried applying for one today and I wasn't successful. So there's still a lot of things unravelling that are not there. Again, not many of us are travelling right now, so these things will become clear. But for me, we really do need to have a bit of a drains up when you are due to travel. Okay, so also mobile phone roaming. Anyone who's as old as me remember you had these massive phone bills. Well, there was legislation within the EU passed that they couldn't then charge additional roaming charges if you were in Europe. As of today, that has now stopped. So you are then subjected to your whatever your supplier, your phone supplier has agreed as part of your contract. So you absolutely must check that. It's such a way to rack up bills. But the government, or as in our government, has passed 2 pieces of legislation. Okay, your phone provider has to cap per month. If you're abroad for a month, they have to cap it at £45, okay? And they have to alert you when you spend 80% of that. Now, that way means that, realistically, the worst case scenario is going to be £45 added to your bill, but that's still quite a big thing. And also, if you desperately need to use that service while you're away, it could be a lot higher, and you'd be kind of like built into that. You'd have to kind of accept the fact that you've been announced of your limit, and then you could agree then to spend more. So that really is something, worth considering. Driving licenses. Now, if you've ever driven to Europe, and not to be honest, I have done many times. It's not something I really do a lot with my clients, but, though the law has changed, I think you would have been not very sensible, let's say, to travel to Europe without taking your driving licence, without taking the logbook to show you own the car, and also not taking your car insurance policy. So you definitely need to do that now. But there is one quite big change that you do need to think about. You need to contact your car insurance provider a minimum of 6 weeks before you go, because you need a green card issued to you to allow you to drive abroad, and that essentially triggers the validity of your travel insurance while you're away. So that is really key if you're thinking of doing that. So really need to plan ahead there. Pets, I do have some clients travelling with their pets, and again, as you would have known, as part of Europe, we had these pet passports. As of today, they're no longer valid. It doesn't mean you can't travel with your pet, you absolutely can, but you've got a new process. Now, what you have to do is apply for an animal health card, okay? Now, the key difference with this, if you had a pet passport, it's valid for a period of time. This animal health card is typically only valid for the duration of the trip, for that single trip that you're doing, and you have to have it issued by your vet no earlier than 10 days before you leave. So quite a big change there with that one. Duty free. Now, we haven't really seen duty free. We haven't seen duty free inside Europe for a long time, but so you'd know if you go to duty free that if you're traveling in Europe and you go and try and buy a bottle of gin, that it will be as expensive as if you bought it not in duty free, but if you were travelling, say, to America, it would be cheaper. So now you can have, within an allowance, a certain amount of duty-free alcohol and cigarettes. But what you cannot have any longer, and what they're stopping, is we used to be able to get tax-free electronic goods at the airport. That is now stopping. I think that's probably quite a big loss. I bought my camera there, certainly burnt my Fitbit, and they're normally quite competitively priced. So that is also changing. Okay, so that's all about Brexit. So I think really the point here is, up until the point you're ready to travel, that we need to plan ahead and make sure that you don't fall foul of any of these things, particularly around the passport. One of the big things that I wanted to talk to you today about, though, is if you've already booked a holiday, okay, and something has changed, okay. So a lot of people in good faith would have booked a holiday, you could have booked a holiday a year ago and this wasn't even on the horizon, or you could have booked a holiday earlier in the year, early 2020, and, thought this would be over and done with, but it's not, or more importantly, probably what has happened, and this has gone on with sort of 75% of my clients, is that we have changed your travel date from 2020 to 2021. Okay, so, and a lot of things are changing. So when we were in full lockdown, okay, so that means the whole country was closed. In terms of your rights for your holiday booking are quite different than if you are now in tier 4, and I'll just talk through that a little bit. When we had a full lockdown, our Foreign Commonwealth Office said, you cannot go anywhere except all but essential travel. And what that does as part of ABTA, okay, which is the body that kind of, it's the organisation's rules and regulations that we operate under. It says if that is the case and the FCO rules no travel, you are entitled to a refund, okay? And that has, my God, it took us a long time to get there in terms of people not wanting to give them, but that's now happening and they're taking longer than they should. But all of my clients who are entitled to a refund have either had it or we've now, or we're going through the process of you know, getting it, okay? And then that's a really important point. However, that FCO advice could be blanket, so no one from the UK travels anywhere, or it could be destination advice, okay? So, for example, FCO at the moment says all but essential travel to France. If you've got a package holiday booked to France, then you are entitled to a refund. Slightly different for flight only, and if you've got a situation with that, then contact me independently because that does vary, okay? So, Tier 4, okay, so if you're in Staffordshire, but to be fair, if you're in 80% of England, you're now in Tier 4. As part of being in Tier 4, you are not allowed to do anything but essential travel. And sorry, though I don't necessarily agree with this, holidays are not essential travel. Now, I can tell you this, that if you were to go out to Dubai now, okay, you would find a lot of people there who are from Tier 4. And yes, a lot of them would have been very lucky. They would have got there before Tier 4 kicked in, but a lot of them travelled after that legislation came in. Now, I've had plenty of calls from people saying to me, Gilly, what is your opinion as if we're in Tier 4? We've booked this holiday with X, Y and Z. We've told we can't get our money back and we want to go. What is your view on that? Now, I would never, ever recommend that you travel abroad or anywhere that isn't essential if you're in Tier 4. That's what the law is, and I would certainly not be encouraging anyone to break that. And for my clients, I don't have any clients that are travelling who shouldn't be, now though it is of course their choice, because some of these holidays will still go ahead. So what I would say to you is a lot of people are thinking of breaching it, but I ask you to look at something else with that. If you breach that, it is highly unlikely that your travel insurance would remain valid, okay? And so let's give you a scenario, okay? You go away with your extended family or whatever, you're on the flight, and say granddad has a heart attack and that flight has to be diverted, okay? That is something that your travel insurance would cover you for. But if you're traveling without insurance, you would not be covered, and they would seek repayment for you. So you will see cases of people being bankrupted because they have travelled without valid insurance. It's going to happen, and it happens every year anyway because people travel with insurance. But you have been warned. It is serious. Don't do it. Okay. So that leaves us with a dilemma. Perhaps an Easter is the next really big pinch point. You've got a holiday booked for Easter, okay, and you're now in Tier 4. What do you do? Well, right now there's not much we can do, okay, because typically we start to look at things around 28 days before travel. So we're really looking at departures up to the end of January. And you're not going to want to hear this, but your rights, your legal rights are minimal because it's not covered by the FCO ruling. It is actually at the gift of the tour operator, so whoever you've booked your holiday with. Now, you may not have even considered this a year ago, so we're going to talk about that a bit if you are now booking. So you need to talk to the tour operator or your travel agent as soon as possible to see what your options are. Now, it is highly unlikely that a refund is on the table, but if you're dealing with a reputable travel agent and tour operator, a rebooking should be on the table or an amendment, but you may well have to pay for that. But that is a better place to be than losing all your money, and that is a genuine reality. I would also say, if your travel date is between now and the end of January, we should be taking action now. We should be going through, and I'm speaking to everyone that I've got travelling to talk to them what their options will be. The other thing I will say as well is a lot of people are gung-ho and they say, oh, we're going to go. But ultimately what happens is the flight is cancelled. And that's because you know, for example, you've got a BA flight to St. Lucia. Well, probably 80% of the people on that flight are now in tier 4, so that flight isn't really viable anymore. So you'll see it cancelled anyway, but not necessarily. Now, we have had situations, not with any of my clients, and Emirates have been a little bit tricky with this. They say the flight is going. This is flight only. The flight is going. If you're not on it and you haven't amended it, then basically you're at total loss. So we just really need to monitor that situation. But of course, we're now much wiser if we're going on to rebook something new now. Okay, so we talked about, there's a third one. Okay, so we talked about going into tier 4. We talked about if our government says no travel for everyone, so that would be a complete lockdown. And we've talked about it if there is FCO advice, no travel to a particular destination. There is a third one which has reared its ugly head, okay? And it's actually created quite a lot of havoc, and I actually personally got caught up in this. Okay, what has happened? Okay, let's just describe what is a travel corridor. A travel corridor is where our government has said you can travel to that country, okay, and when you return from that country, you do not have to quarantine. Now, a lot of those countries aren't actually accepting us, or weren't then, and certainly aren't now. But let's say you went on a trip with a travel corridor and you know, there was no quarantine in place, you could just come home as long as you fill in the forms. Now that can change, as we know that Grant Chaps does his little updates every Thursday, and that kind of changes a lot. But what we saw recently with the Canary Islands was, and personally I was over in the Canaries when this happened, is they said, FCO says you can still go to the Canary Islands, so no refund, no amends, you know, your rights are diminished, but you will have to quarantine. Now, obviously, I was over there, and that's a risk you run. And I always say to people, if quarantine is a deal breaker, you shouldn't be travelling. However, quarantine has now been reduced from 14 days to 10 days, and we now have a test and release scheme. And if anyone's interested in that, we can talk about that. You can test and release, you can test at 5 days, but realistically, it's going to be 6 or 7 by the time you get those results back. Okay, so you have booked a holiday, let's say, to Greece. It's in the travel corridor, it remains in the travel corridor, so FCO says you can go, your travel insurance remains valid, but you have to quarantine. In that case, you have minimal protection again. It is at the gift of your tour operator and your travel agent who you have booked with. So it's up to them to negotiate on your behalf. Now, in that situation, it's unlikely that a refund would be on the table, but realistically an amendment or a rebooking should be if you're using anyone reputable. Okay, so if we take all of that in, if we're booking now, so what we need to be doing is when we're booking something now is we need to be asking the question, what happens if we go into tier 4? What happens if quarantine is introduced before I go? What happens if a lockdown happens? You know, so we need to understand, you know, what are the terms and conditions that you're buying into. Now, that might sound horrendously complicated, and that's where I come in to hold people's hand through that process. But the simplest answer is, if you're booking something, just pay a low deposit. Deposits can most of the deposits I charge are between £60 and £99. I know nobody wants to lose that money, but it allows you to, if you found a good deal, to secure that deal. And then, you know, final balance may not be until 6 weeks before travel. Well, if we don't know what's going on by then, I don't think we'll ever know. So what you say to yourselves is, I found the holiday of my lifetime and this is what I really want to do. I'm willing to take a punt. I'm going to book it on a low deposit and I'm at risk of 60 quid. You know, I'm prepared to take that risk. I do question why you should have to take that risk, but, you know, it's a calculated one, and, you know, I understand why people do want to do that, particularly as things are changing all the time. Okay, so so make sure you pay a low deposit, and as I said, you need to check the terms and conditions in terms of what the level of flexibility is. And to be fair, a lot of tour operators and holiday companies are responding now. Most of the things that I book are absolutely flexible, and what happens is you pay a deposit, and when it becomes what's deemed travel ready, you then pay another chunk. But if it never becomes travel ready, you get your original payment back, or we put it towards a new holiday. So there's a lot to consider there. Okay, I'm just going to go through a couple of bits and pieces here in terms of my advice. Okay, so Currently, you are going to be, right, if you look at the travel corridors where we can go, but when you cross-reference that to the countries that are accepting us, I think right now we've only got Gibraltar on there. I think that's right in Europe, but I don't want to, but the point being here is with this new strain of COVID, a lot of countries denied us access. Okay, so not only do you need to check what our rules are for re-entry into the UK after you've been, but also what are their rules for accepting you, because some of them actually, some countries still require quarantine on the way in. Also what we're seeing, of course, is testing. So I honestly believe that in 2021 and probably 22, there is nowhere you will be able to go without a COVID test before you go and having a proof of a negative test. A lot of people are thinking that the vaccination is going to change that. Well, it won't change it. It's great from your perspective if you've been vaccinated, but there is still question marks about whether you could still be carrying COVID and pass it on. But also, you know, it's not 100%. It's, you know, obviously it's a huge step forward and it's really exciting. But if you think if you've had a vaccination plus you've got a negative test, then that's giving everyone else a lot of confidence. So I can't see that changing. Now, when you book a holiday, you need to factor in what the testing requirements is. For the Canaries, you've only have 72 hours. That is unbelievably tight by the time you've had the test done, got the results, etc. And a lot of people got caught out over Christmas if they were due to depart on the 27th or the 28th to the Canaries. They couldn't get tested in time or get the results back in time. You will be denied boarding. When Brian and I went to Fuerteventura, we had to show our negative COVID test when we boarded the plane, and there were people who turned away because they hadn't got their results. So you absolutely need to factor that in terms of the timing and also the cost. Say, for example, you're a family of 4, I think you need to factor into your budget at least £100 ahead for that testing. And if you're need to do test and release on your return, to get quarantine down to 5 to 7 days, then you could be looking at a second £400. So we really need to think that through as well. That's not small money at all, but I think it's going to be an ongoing cost, you know, to travel. Okay, so you need to keep up to date with Foreign Commonwealth advice. Now, what you can do, say, for example, if you're due to travel to Malta, let's say in April, you can register your email address with the government on the Malta site. If you've got any problems doing this, let me know and I'll send you the links and show you how to do it. And it means every time that travel advice changes to Malta, then you would get a notification. So that's a great way of doing it. And that's what I do, is I tag those for the clients I've got travelling into destinations, so I'm getting a rolling update on those. And things are changing so regularly. We're changing things and the destination is changing things. And that's another thing, be prepared for change. Okay, you might have booked your package holiday or your bespoke package. Where we're finding a lot of changes is with flight schedules. I love Jet2 holidays, but they are cancelling like Billy-O. And that is because they've got to have an economically viable model. So what they're doing is perhaps condensing flights. When we went out to Fuerteventura, interestingly, the flight went to Leeds Bradford first and then came and collected us from Manchester and then went on. So do be prepared for that. Changes of dates, and also with hotels as well. They're really shortening their windows in many cases of when they reopen. Now, you know, in Europe, it's quite usual to see seasonal openings, say from May till the end of October. We are seeing a squeeze on that. So you may find that you've booked a holiday to a hotel that isn't even opening. So you need to make sure that you've got the necessary protections and flexibility in place for that. So be prepared for change, that's for sure. Also, book a package. Everything that I sell is packaged, okay, so that means it's got a flight, okay, it's normally got a transfer. Most of my transfers are private ones, so that means you have a lovely person at the airport, you know, normally with a sign saying, welcome Mr. and Mrs. Bachelor. You get in the car and then you're whisked off to your resort. And I highly recommend that. Yes, it's a lovely thing to do and it's practical and it's quick, but also in these COVID era, it limits your exposure as well. So you've got a flight in there. you have got a transfer in there, not compulsory, but you've also got a hotel element in there as well, and that is what a package is. It could be, for example, you'll be, as I said, Jet2 holidays, that could be a package, but it also could be, and more of what I do is it could be a flight to Cape Town. It could be, which then includes accommodation in Cape Town for 3 nights, 2 nights in the wine district, 2 or 3 nights on the garden route, plus safari, hire car, you know, transfers, all the gubbins. That can still be a package. It's completely bespoke to you. But the key to that is, it means if one element fails of that package, then it's up to me to resolve that for you. And the other thing with the package, and we talked about FCO advice changing, it is very clear under ABTA guidelines that if FCO says no travel, that package you are due a full refund for. So that's why it's really important. People who've got hotel only or who have also got flight only don't have that kind of protection. Also, a question that I get asked a lot is about atoll protection. Okay, atoll protection is against airline failure, but it isn't, okay, if you bought a ticket through Virgin or BA, it is not, you're not protected under the atoll scheme. Okay, the atoll scheme is only if you buy it as part of a package. Look, it sounds nuts, but there's a reason. There's a long reason for it. The airlines didn't want to buy into the scheme. There are other ways you can protect yourself if you've got flight only. But under that atoll scheme, so for example, if your airline fails, let's think Thomas Cook, Monarch before that, then you are entitled to a refund. Also, if your holiday operator fails as well. And what happens then is you are entitled to a refund from our government under a scheme through the Civil Aviation Authority. It takes forever, as anyone from Thomas Cook will, you know, got caught up in that, but it will come, and it means ultimately you have protection, and that is really important because it's really tough in travel right now, really tough. None of us are earning any money. I've never worked so hard, you know, to earn no money. And, you know, this is not a whinge. I'm just trying to give you the practical realities of it. I get paid when people travel, and also as part of that travel, I might have credit card fees and such like that I pay on your behalf. Okay, and other licenses, obviously I've got to operate my business as well. I have to give you a full refund. So most travel companies will have made big losses in 2021, huge losses, okay? Now, a lot of us now, I have a lot of forward bookings for 2021 and 2022, so I'm incredibly confident, okay? I'm not unduly concerned, but there will be companies going out of business left, right and centre. So you need to be 100% sure that you have got protection in place. Some respects your travel insurance might be in that space for you, but really where you'd be looking for the backstop is under that atoll scheme and with our CAA. So just be mindful of that, okay? Okay, add-ons. So, okay, let's look at it here. You have booked your package holiday, you've done all the right thing, but then what you do is you go and book airport parking, airport hotel, airport lounges, and they're non-refundable, okay? Or you've paid for them and they're non-refundable, okay? So suddenly what happens is, and I say be prepared for change, your flight gets changed by a day or a day or so, your holiday can still go ahead, and they think, oh no, my car parking now is out of sync, my hotel is out of sync, my lounge is out of sync. Now, it is essential when you buy in those items that they are fully refundable or fully flexible, okay? Most of them are now, and everything I do for my clients is, but it's, you know, a lot of people have been caught out, you know, with a non-refundable airport hotel. You don't want to be doing that now because nothing is guaranteed. Unless you've got the deal of the century, you really don't want to be doing that. Okay, I've mentioned about ABTA, so only book with an ABTA bonded agent. That means, like me, we have to operate by certain rules in terms of refunds I've talked about, but also how we disclose information to you and how we advise and guide you. I've talked about atoll protection. Also, this is a bit of a sensitive one, which I'm saying is do not start researching holidays until you're ready to book. So don't look before you're ready to book. And that is that availability right now in 2021 is actually fairly limited. And we're seeing quite a significant increase in prices, particularly around the main pinch points of Easter and our summer holidays. So we are seeing an escalation in prices. And there's nothing more frustrating that you go and look at your holiday and then you come back and it's like £500 more expensive. So what I say to yourself is if I see something that's right, it's the right price and it's perfect for me, am I ready to book that? I understand the risks in terms of T4 or lockdowns and all that. I've got my travel insurance. I understand all of that. If I've got all that in place, if I see something, am I ready to go? If you answer yes, then get out there. And I'm going to talk a bit about, what you need to just to make sure. But if you're not, do not torture yourself, because it really is a very challenging market. Or look to 2022. I have been staggered by the amount of bookings that I have done for 2022. And the great thing is we're getting a lot of forward availability. Lapland is a huge one here. Lapland last year was completely cancelled. And so many people rebooked then for this year, which meant that our availability for 2021, probably we only had 20% of the availability that we would normally have, because everyone is rebooked. So what has happened now is we've spoken to our providers and they're releasing availability for 2022. And anyone who's investigated Lapland, it is a phenomenal thing to do. It's such a great way to make memories. I absolutely love it. Not all Lapland trips are created equal, so really do your research or come for some advice, but it is expensive. It really is an expensive thing to do when you factor everything in. So if you are planning for 2022, great, you've got the best part of 2 years to, save a little bit each month for it, to have that, holiday of a lifetime. Okay, moving on. Okay, so plan ahead 2022. Now, I've had some questions sent to me before doing this broadcast, and one of them was around cruise. Now, this is quite controversial, what I'm going to say now, but I'm going to say it because if anyone knows me, then I will be 100% honest. I am not recommending anyone books a cruise for 2021 unless you've got full flexibility to move it. There is just so much that is unknown, okay? The cruise companies are doing a lot to improve, health standards and standards on the ship. That actually concerns me less because, it's incredible what they're doing, but it's the complexity of it. If you've got an itinerary that moves between numerous countries, you've got to have cooperation amongst all of those countries to be able to facilitate that journey. One thing that is popular for 2021 is cruises around the UK. Well, that probably is okay if you're comfortable with the environment. But I would say to you, if you're looking to cruise, we've got so many options for 2022 and we've got good offers and we can get those secured. The flights aren't here, but that doesn't matter at the moment. We can get, like for example, French Polynesia is hugely popular for cruise, and for forward bookings for 2022, we've all for my preferred ships cruise lines, then we have already started to see limited availability. But yes, cruise, I would say late 2021 or into 2022. But also what I would say to you as well, if you're thinking of cruising into 2022, get it nailed now, because what's going to happen again is we're going to be in a circumstance, we've got all of these people who've got these future cruise credits that have all built up, who then will be looking to shift into 2022. So you need to get in there and secure what you want before they become released again, as we get more cancellations through 2021. I don't think we'll be back to any kind of mainstream cruising in any real quantity until the second part of this year. If not, I would say probably autumn, winter at a push, okay? So that's worth thinking through. Anyone knows my absolute favourite thing is a cruise. Brian and I are looking at Australia and New Zealand for 2022, so early 2022. To be fair, they probably won't welcome us back until then, so it's probably perfect timing for that. Okay, so I was asked about cruise. I was asked about whether people are travelling now. They are. I've got clients in both Dubai and the Maldives at the moment who travelled before, who are either not under Tier 4 restrictions, so they're in Tier 3 or lower, or they started to travel before then, so travel is possible. What I'm saying to you is, if you are concerned, I think that you're not going to get much, if you've got something booked, you're not going to get much common sense really from your operator until you're due to travel, probably with a month for 4 to 6 weeks. I think if you go to them now wanting to change your kind of summer holiday to the following year, that could be more tricky. But of course, do get in touch. I'm always willing to go into battle on your behalf if I can, because that's certainly a great way to learn. Now, this is going to be an absolutely shameless plug. I'm going to say to you, if you are travelling in 2021, book with a reputable travel agent, okay? Now, you might want to go to someone that you recognise on the high street, but just remember they're only open high street hours. Anyone who books with me will tell you that I'm pretty much available 24/7 because I need to be, and I'm very, very speedy at responding. I might not always have the information, but you can always get hold of me and I can tell you what I'm waiting for and why I'm waiting for it and what is changing. And that's all part of the personal service. Now, some people say to me, Jilly, why would I book a Jet2 holiday with you? And I say, well, look, you can go online to book your Jet2 holiday, but if you want an insight into what countries I'm recommending, what the entry requirements are, you know, or any other advice about the hotel, or you just don't want to book it online, or you just want to talk to a human. Now, I have an office which I have people to go with appointments, so a lot of people prefer that face-to-face contact. Now, not possible at the moment, unfortunately, because being in tier 4, I'm non-essential, but most of my stuff is done over video, so which is great, so people can see me, I can see them, and then I can go through all of the issues. Thank you. I can vouch for that amazing service from Jilly. Well, that's really kind. I do try my very best, but also if you don't book with me, I will try and advise and guide you anyway. If you find my service useful, whether you book with me or not, it's really lovely if you like my posts, share my posts, follow my things, but also recommend me to sort of friends and family, and also leave a review. To use my service, there is no cost, okay? I get paid by the holiday company, so I only get paid if people travel. But, you know, so if you don't travel, I don't get paid and you don't pay anything. So, you know, I'm there to help, and I hope that perhaps if we get, right now, more people are contacting me, and when we get to the end of the process, we're not booking, not because I don't want to, but because I've gone through everything with them, and they say, do you know what, Jilly, now you've shared all this with us, it's not right for us now. And I just say, you know, fine. Or we've got people who are booking lots of things, but they're booking them on low deposits, you know, with complete flexibility. So, you know, I find what is, you know, absolutely what is right for you. So definitely book with a travel agent, because they're your advocate. I've got clients who we've got sticky situations with, I can lobby on their behalf, and because I'm part of a multi-million-pound organisation, then I've got more lobbying power than you have if you're trying to take on a tour operator. You know, I might have personally have hundreds of thousands of pounds with one supplier, so if I've got a problem with one client, with that, they're going to be more lenient to helping me. And what I've been able to do is, even though the terms and conditions are saying no refunds, no nothing, what I've typically been able to do is get protected deposits that we've then rolled over. So you haven't got your cash back, but what you have been able to do is rebook a holiday, and that will keep rolling until we can get it finished. Okay, so recommendations for travelling in Easter. It's great with the vaccines and we're going to start to see those, but realistically, I don't think we're going to have many more destinations opening up. So we're looking at really Dubai, Maldives, maybe St. Lucia, maybe Antigua. You know, possibly some more, and I'll talk about those more as we go through, but we are pretty limited at the moment. I'm hoping we might see more of Europe open up, but they are, you know, sort of fighting the fight that we are, and as you know, our own infection rates are quite high, so it may be the case that, you know, that a lot of countries just say, look, they're not going to take citizens from the UK, even though they're doing a testing. So that is a genuine, you know, reality at the moment. Okay, so on a more negative note, what I'm not booking at the moment, I said cruise. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm booking lots of cruise, but only for 2022. I'm not booking any USA for 2021. I am for 2022. I've got clients who are due to go in 2021 because we've rebooked, and we'll just have to see how that goes, whether that trip goes ahead or not. I think the USA has got a lot of unique challenges. I'm just talking to some clients at the moment who are looking to go in September. That's probably okay, but I wouldn't be looking to book anything before that unless we've got fully flexible, you know, terms that, you know, if it doesn't pan out, that you've got, you know, you're easily going to be able to get your money back. The other thing I'm not doing is booking. I do a lot of really complex itineraries, and that's why a lot of people use travel agents. So you may be doing, you know, let's say, for example, Hong Kong, you know, to Fiji, and then on to New Zealand and Australia. You know, you really don't want to be crossing continents or countries. What we can do is, like, for example, I've got clients never wanted to go to Dubai, And I'm talking about some options there. And there are some, like we can do like city Dubai, beach Dubai, but we can also do desert Dubai. So we can mix it up a little bit in country, but it's not the time to be crossing borders. Like for example, when we did our Alaskan cruise, we sailed from San Francisco around Alaska and we finished in Vancouver. These days that really creates a problem because I've not only got to comply with the regulations in Australia but also Canada, and that's where the level of complexity is, and we just don't have the answers to that. That for me is something for 2022. You definitely can travel in 2021, but we just need to be realistic. Okay, yeah, so that is pretty much it. I feel like I've been going on forever there. I think it's tricky. I think it's possible, but really make sure you work with a travel professional so you understand. I'm here to answer your questions and give you advice and guidance. A lot of this is, I can give you the facts as they're presented currently, but also a lot of it is based on insight. So we're never going to be, 100% accurate. But what I'm starting to do is anticipate the issues as they come, so you can really understand the true risk if you do book. And also the risks if you don't, okay? I think if you're desperate to travel in 2021, we should be talking now, okay? Due to availability issues and such like, but if we do book something, that we've got this full protection in place, as I said, and also flexibility. So that pretty much concludes it for this evening. Any questions, message me, or we can set up a call. I always love to speak to people to see how you're getting on. Last thing to say is huge Happy New Year to everyone, and let's hope 2021 brings lovely things to us all. And finally, if this is useful, please like and share. Please leave me a review or a recommendation. That would just be amazing for me, and it really does help me. So love to you all, and thank you so much for joining me. Take care.